was the solitary aspect of everything that happened next that was one of the worst parts of the suffering that our Lord did for our sin. He had no one to bear some of the load. He had no one to share some of the price, share some of the sacrifice. Everything that he did, especially when he left that garden, voluntarily allowed himself to be arrested by that mob. From that point on, our Lord was alone. He allowed himself to be mocked, to be ridiculed, to be blasphemed, to be spit upon, to be hit, both open and closed hands. Which again brings back my question, how? You say your reason, the why, is because you loved us so, but how could you? Especially in that circumstance, when he's been treated worse than an animal by his creation, by the ones that if he could open their eyes to the window of heaven, they could see the place that he had descended from to come down and dwell among them. To see the heavenly host just waiting to be dispatched to come to his aid. He could at any moment in time have opened up the windows of heaven and allowed them, like Stephen did as he was being stoned in Acts 7, to see the heavenly realm. And to come to grips with who it was that they were messing with. Oftentimes there are people who think they're celebrities. They've been caught at times. They think that they are receiving injustice, or someone is treating them the way that they don't think they should be treated because of their celebrity status. And they'll say at times, "Do you know who I am?" As if you wouldn't be treating me like this if you knew who I was. At any time, Jesus could have said, "You don't believe what I've been saying? Let me show you who I am." And yet he allowed himself to be ridiculed, mocked, beaten, scourged, and then nailed for 6 hours. 3 of them in total darkness, to a cross. And as if everything that had happened to him was not enough, while he's hanging on the cross, nowhere now for him to go from a human perspective. The next thing that's going to happen is he's going to breathe his last on that cross, but for that bloodthirsty mob who hated him so much that they said to Pilate, a man that they hated, about Rome, a government that they hated, "We have no king but Caesar," when he offered to let him go and said, "I'll release your king." And their hatred for him was so immense, so intense, that they were able to just for a minute lay aside their hatred for Caesar, their hatred for Rome, their hatred for anything that did not have Jewish blood running through its veins. And they say, if we're going to have to pledge allegiance to Caesar so that you go through with killing this man, then Caesar's our king. After he has been scourged, Pilate, I believe in John's account, the reason that he says, "Behold the man," is because Pilate wants nothing to do with everything that is going on. He knows this man is innocent. He knows the crowd has brought Jesus to him out of envy, out of jealousy. He wants nothing to do with anything that is going on. And I believe that after the scourging, he brings Jesus out in the condition that he was in as a man who had just endured one of the worst physical punishments on the face of the earth in existence at that time. And you can imagine the battered state of his body, the bloodied state of his body, and I believe that Pilate said, not in a mocking way, but in a way, "Behold the man," so that maybe their thirst for blood would have been assuaged. Maybe they would have said, "We're good." But what did the mob cry out? The scourging was not enough. The beatings were not enough. The mockings were not enough. crucify him. How Jesus could go through with it is beyond my comprehension. But he allowed those Roman soldiers to nail him to the cross. For 6 hours he hung there in indescribable, and the only time I think it's legitimate to use this word, in excruciating pain, out of the cross. Because the Latin, those that use the Latin language did not believe that they had a word that sufficiently expressed the pain that a person endures when they're on the cross. So they came up with a word that means out of the cross. Pain that can only be experienced from someone who is hanging on the cross. And he hangs there for 6 hours. And the whole time being mocked and ridiculed by the people who are standing at the foot of the cross. Oh, let's see if somebody will come save him now. Oh, did he call out for Elijah? Somebody runs and is going to get him something. No, don't give him something to drink. Let's see if Elijah will save him. If he's the king that he claims he is, come down off that cross, we'll believe him then. Even being ridiculed by, I believe, for a while, both of the thieves for the duration of the time won. And then while he is hanging on the cross in darkness for 3 hours, cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because he did not even at that point feel the presence of his Father. His Father had to turn his back on his own Son because his Son was bearing the sins of the world in his body. He died so that we might